spotlight that can be a little hot. Voters there elevate Trump and crush the RTA. But county government is rocked by scandal. County Executive Mark Hackel is here. And from the noisy streets to the nasty back and forth on social media, are you heading into the holiday feeling thankful or panicked? We'll try to navigate the divide between family and friends. Today is Sunday, November 20th, 2016, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint as we point toward one of the best days of any year in the city of Detroit, Thanksgiving Day. The parade, the football, all the traditions. We do this holiday really well. But are you looking forward to the annual family get-together? Or is there an election-aided schism coming to your table? You know, I kind of joked about it last week, and then I spent another week looking at social media, and I realized it might not be a joking matter. Friendships are being shredded right now, and family ties may be well tested this week. But beyond this week, how do we find a way back together after this very nasty and bitter election? We'll talk about that a little later on this morning. But up first, another arrest this week in Macomb County government. The feds clearly have their jaws set on Macomb corruption. There's no telling how far this could go, but we understand there are a lot of nervous folks in the county offices just now. Macomb finds itself in a lot of conversations beyond arrests and indictments. Macomb voters are credited with being the big difference for Donald Trump in Michigan, where the margin was razor thin. But there is some bitterness among their metro area cousins over the fact that it was Macomb voters who put the stake in the heart of the Regional Transit Authority, the RTA. And a nasty snit is broken out between Warren Mayor Jim Fouts and the county executive over some cryptic references to some kind of environmental situation. What is that all about? We'll get caught up on all of it with the county executive Mark Hackel. He's up first this morning on Flashpoint. Well, the folks in Macomb County have gotten used to their politics getting national attention. It's really the cradle of the term Reagan Democrat. But the focus on Macomb politics right now has been particularly intense coming out of this last election. Let's talk about that and more with the Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel. Mark, thanks for being back on Flashpoint this morning. Let's start with what's going on between you and the mayor of Warren right now. This past week on Thursday, he got on social media and started talking about something kind of a specter, environmental specter looming out there, made a loose comparison to what happened in Flint, and then walked it back a little bit. But can you, this apparently has something to do with Freedom Hill, but explain what's going on here.
Yeah, and I don't think it's between myself and the mayor. I had to step in, and the reason for it was because of that cryptic, I guess, if you will, Facebook comment that he put out there and kind of alluded to, you know, a mini version of Flint. You don't do that. I mean, first and foremost, no public official should use Flint as some kind of, I guess, way of drawing attention to something just to draw attention to themselves. So by doing that, we were really concerned, and what happened was a lot of the residents, whether it was in Sterling Heights or throughout the county, were worried about our drinking water because of the way the letter was written. I immediately called him at 6 o'clock in the morning and said, you know, what is going on here? You know, I don't like where this is going, and we need to have a conversation. Never called back. So media was all over it. Residents were calling. So I had to step in and have a press conference because the media couldn't get to him to find out what he was talking about and say, first off, let's hold off. There is no issue dealing with the drinking water because we had all the experts that understood drinking water. Even his own Department of Public Works, his water department, said we were blindsided by this. So in doing so, it created a controversy between he and I. And so with that being said, I think what he's referring to is some issues at Freedom Hill that we've been working on with
landfill issues
in the city of Sterling Heights. So I don't know if he's going after the city of Sterling Heights because he's upset about something, but I stepped in because of major concern about environmental issues. It's just not a reality.
As I was going to say, to finish this off, you don't believe there's anything looming out there that's troubling.
It's not that I don't believe it. It's the experts that are engaged in the various issues in the county. That one certainly isn't one where people are saying, okay, there's an environmental concern in the city of Sterling Heights. That's not the issue.
Let's move on to this corruption case that we've been watching unfold as the feds have now made 3 very high-profile arrests of elected officials. But the sense among almost everybody I talk to is that this is just the start, that there's more. What do you think is going on?
Yeah, and I hear the same. You got a lot of public officials that are a little nervous, a little apprehensive, and concerned because they're seeing what's happening. A lot of these contracts that they get involved in, you know, the question becomes: are they taking money to help an election campaign, you know, as a campaign donation, or are they taking money because it's some type of a bribe to get something done? And unfortunately, that's what's been happening with some of these public officials in some of these municipalities. And I know they keep saying Macomb County. County and Macomb County government, but it's municipal personalities so far.
Yes.
Nobody in Macomb County government has been brought in as a result of this. Yet there's talk about that being a possibility as well, maybe not connected to this Rizzo issue, but other issues that are
trash collection issue. Yeah. Have you been talked to by the feds? Have you been deposed? Have you been interviewed?
Well, full disclosure, it's not so much that I've been interviewed, but there have been people that have been talking to me. And my background in law enforcement, I'm one of those, no longer do I have the ability to investigate, but I've been one that has directed individuals that felt like they have been wronged by certain public officials because of contracts or whatnot, and have planned and told them that you need to go talk to somebody that's a government official that understands law enforcement, and you need to share information and not be afraid of the retaliation or retribution. That's what most of them are worried about. They'll come forward, but they're afraid that nobody's going to do something about it, and now they're exposed, and it's going to mean something with their livelihood. Well, seeing what's happening right now has caused for more contractors, developers, and people that maybe feel like they're being bullied by a public official to come forward and say, I think somebody's going to actually do something about this now. Well,
if you're the one that people are bringing their complaints to, you've probably got a pretty good sense of how big this is. Have we just seen the tip of the iceberg? Or, I mean, I guess how big is the corruption problem in these municipalities in Macomb County?
Interesting enough, the Rizzo thing wasn't even something that was on my radar. I heard nothing about that until it started.
We haven't even gotten to the things that they've brought you yet.
In conversations that I've had, it's been much more, I guess, connected with, I guess some of the permits that people are going to be getting and pay-to-play concerns. And so, with that being said, that information has been passed along. And so, do I think there are some investigative agencies that are very interested in this and working through it with those that are complainants? Absolutely. I'm very certain that they're very interested in trying to figure out did some public official do something that they should not have done because of their position in a public office.
How would you characterize then the climate, the political and business climate in these municipalities being investigated?
Yeah, there's a lot of nervous public officials and trying to wait and see what might be.
Do you sense though that do you sense them as being corrupt places?
You know what? I don't think the places, but I think there's certain individuals that are. They've been acting in that fashion. Not only from what I've heard, but some of the things that I've witnessed and saw myself. Albeit, I can't complain on behalf of someone, that individual has to come forward. So people sometimes wonder, if you're really going to be part of the solution as a public official, you can't just sit and watch those type of things happen. I don't have that luxury. Yeah. 30 years in law enforcement, if I was just sit back and not give somebody direction as to where to go and how to handle these things, then you know what, I'm as much a part of the problem as the individual that's creating this problem. So public officials need to be part of the solution and working with others and saying, hey, it's wrong. If that's happening, you need to step up and you need to come forward and direct them to the resources that are necessary that something can get done.
Let's move to what happened in this last election in Macomb County. You're a Democrat. You watched, I think some people argue that in a state where maybe the margin was 12 to 13,000 votes between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, that the overwhelming win that he had in Macomb County was the difference maker. Characterize what you think we saw in Macomb County.
It's interesting because I listen to polling and people talking about polls, whether it's local or national, and as I listen to it, I find that interesting because I don't know if they're just calling somebody and getting a reaction to see what they're going to say, but I'm out on the streets, I'm engaging, I'm throughout the entire county, and I listen to people in their conversations and talking to them. I don't talk to them or try to convince them what to do, but as that conversation goes on, I kept listening, and I was very convinced that Donald Trump was going to win Macomb County, and I say that because first and foremost, signs don't win elections, but I'm going to tell you, I have never seen as many presidential signs for a candidate in Macomb County than the ones we just saw for Donald Trump. It was amazing. And the conversations with your regular, I guess, if you will, working class people that were talking about we need change. It's not so much that they liked Donald Trump, but they were just tired of what's going on and they wanted to give the politics back to the people.
Well, it's interesting because Macomb County went for Barack Obama twice.
Yes.
A lot of other counties did, and those counties continued then to support Hillary Clinton, and Macomb County changed its mind, I guess you'd say, in a big way.
Yeah.
What's happening in Macomb County that isn't happening somewhere else?
I really don't know. I mean, I'm fortunate because I'm on the receiving end of the opposite of that. In other words, even during the gubernatorial races, when Governor Snyder was running, he won Macomb County overwhelmingly, overwhelmingly, 60% of the vote.
Right.
Yet I was running on a ticket as a Democrat, as a county executive, and I won by 70% of the vote. So people don't understand it. But what I tell them is, you know what? You're going to have the strong Republicans and the strong Democrats that are always going to vote Democrat or Republican. But there's a lot of independent vote, and some that will cross over depending upon the candidate or the issue that they're being faced with. So you can't take Macomb County voters for granted.
Absolutely not. And you also told MSNBC this week you don't expect that they have a ton of patience necessarily for Donald Trump. He better deliver pretty quickly or they won't be there for him next time either.
Absolutely. What they look for is they look for that change, and if you're coming in, they expect to see something happening. And if you're not going to deliver on that, again, I don't know if it's a specific promise they're looking for, but they're just looking for change. And I got to tell you, I think the bigger concern they're looking at right now is this willingness to work together, rather than coming in and saying, you know what, now the pendulum swung towards the liberal side, or it's swinging towards the conservative side. They really don't want to hear it anymore, people saying we're going to work together. They want to see it in action. And I'm only hopeful that you're going to see at least some of that, whether it's out of Donald Trump's administration or in Macomb County. I'm going to tell you, it's going to swing back.
As I mentioned off the top of the program, there's a little bit of resentment in some of the other pockets of the metro area for Macomb County, in that people see it as being what killed the RTA. Now, you and Brooks Patterson both decided that you were going to sort of be agnostic through the campaign on this, but clearly it did not register there in a way that was, and I guess I'm asking the same question I asked earlier. Yes. What's going on in Macomb County that was different than the way the story was being told in the rest of the metro area?
Interesting enough, when they talk about the RTA, first and foremost, there isn't anyone that I've talked to that has said we disagree with regional transit. And in fact, in Macomb County, the SMART system, there isn't an opt-out community in Macomb County. We not only supported it, we supported the actual enhancement, meaning when they came back for a millage and an increase in millage, we supported it. What they want to look at, no different than what they did with Proposal 1. In other words, nobody disagreed that we needed our roads fixed and our bridges fixed. They didn't like the proposal. They saw through it and they realized, wait a minute, this isn't what we're looking for. So what they did is they looked at this proposal, and I heard it. I was listening to it, I'm listening to the people, and I tried to warn those at the RTA, you need to come out and talk to Macomb County people. Don't poll them, don't call them on a phone. Engage with them to kind of figure out what it is they're looking for and what really would add value, or get them to think that, you know what, this is something important in my life and I could support that. They're comfortable with what SMART is providing, and they're very happy with that. But they didn't see the connection and understanding. And so I get it, I see it, I think regional transit is important, but the plan that they put forward is what the people voted no against. So to be upset with the voters in Macomb County, you need to look at yourself. If you're a candidate and you lost, why did I lose? Why couldn't I get through the people? Or if it's a proposal, those that were responsible for getting it out there, why is it that you weren't able to connect with them and get them to
You do have to be able to tell your story, but they told it obviously in other parts of the area that they, I mean, even in Oakland it was almost a wash. But the last question I'll ask you, I've talked to a number of people who worked on that initiative who say that 2 years from now, maybe they got to consider opting Macomb out of it. That wouldn't be healthy for Macomb, would it?
No, I don't think so. Again, I think that's a cop-out. I think people in Macomb County, nobody in Macomb County said we don't want regional transit. We don't think it's important. I think the people.
Well, it's a little difficult if you're reading the results. You know, some people will draw their own conclusions about what the vote means.
But Macomb County has always been a supporter. When it's the DIA, Macomb County's been supporter of the zoo, the Cobo Authority, and and beyond. I mean, so there isn't anything we haven't opted out. And again, when it comes to the SMART system, we don't have an opt-out community. So Macomb County's always been all in. I mean, even if you look back in time and you start talking about the metro parks, we've always been part of. So it's not one of those where, okay, well, let's just leave them out since we can't get the votes and just see what we can do with these other areas. It's making it so that it works for everyone, but you got to understand what it is they're looking for.
Mark, it's always good to have you on the program. I appreciate you being here this morning.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll get back to more of that schism that might exist at your Thanksgiving table. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. Welcome back. During a particularly tough time, the former governor of Oklahoma, David Walters, used to joke that he would have to roll around his morning newspaper with a stick before he opened it, or even dunk it in water. Well, maybe you feel the same way watching the turmoil in America today, no matter which side you supported during the election. It's made for some difficult conversations with children, for parents, and it no doubt sets the stage for some rather testy family get-togethers this Thanksgiving. Let's talk about it this morning with Dr. Gerald Shiner, professor of psychiatry at Wayne State, Dr. Donna Rockwell, clinical psychologist, and Cynthia Reynolds, a clinical social worker with First Family Counseling. Thank you all very much for being here. Happy Thanksgiving a little early. Dr. Shiner, let me start with you, because just before we started, you were talking about Thanksgiving can provide this perfect cocktail for turmoil.
Of course, too much food, alcohol, and very strong opinions very far apart. So that's familiarity breeds contempt and a recipe for disaster. People will speak out about what they think and what they thought about the election, who should have won, what they think of who did win. And again, the opinions are so far apart that we're going to see a lot of conflict and emotions are going to rise.
There's no fight like a family fight.
Exactly.
Donna, just watching the way that friendships have fallen apart. In fact, we tried to get the data from Facebook. They wouldn't tell us how many people had unfriended anybody over the last week. But this has really been impactful in really unexpected ways.
It is. I think it's kind of frightening to a lot of people because people they thought they knew have opinions that are abhorrent to them. So they're trying to figure out, where do I place all of this? But I think one thing that might be helpful is if people just stay curious. Like, I wonder why, rather than already coming with a judgment. So just to maintain an air of curiosity as you go to the dinner table that night.
That's a good, I like that thought, because we are all only really experts in our own experiences, so I always say.
Well, haven't you found it's asking the other person and listening rather than telling what you think is the art of conversation and the art of getting along?
So actually it is an opportunity.
Yeah. Cynthia, what are you seeing as we watch all this play out?
I'm seeing the same thing. It is an opportunity for us to have dialogue, but also to remember that we had a life before the election.
Did we? When was that?
Yeah, we did. You know, what else can we talk about when we have this limited time with our family and friends?
It might not be the best use of time to just go down dead-end roads.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you expecting more calls and more, I guess, more things to have to deal with over this next week than normal for you?
Not more calls per se, because I think people are afraid to talk. A lot of times people avoid what they don't want to face, so not really a lot of calls.
Is it, and now we'll just throw this open to anybody, the old rule was, you know, don't talk politics or religion. Is that a fair rule to make? We're just not going to talk politics at the table this year? Or is that setting yourself up for?
It's generally a good rule when you're meeting people that for the first time or people you don't know well. When you're with people you know and you're comfortable, these things do emerge. And we have to remember that political opinions are based on feelings. They have nothing to do with who is divorced and who pays their bills and who opens their emails and does certain things. It's all about feelings and who strikes you and who brings up certain emotions in you.
I think it's important too, though. You can go into the meal and say, we're all together, we have 2 hours, we love each other, let's not talk politics. Let's talk about Johnny in school or what Sally's doing at college, and make an agreement to do that.
I think that's, yeah, to Cynthia's point, there is a lot, there are other things. We did have a life before that. And I want to point out, this was a conversation that I was fairly certain I was going to have to host no matter who won, because we really, the bitterness that we saw break out over this, Cynthia, is really unlike anything that most of us have seen, the polarization. And that's why I worry about where we go from here forward, not just this week, but how do we begin to come back together?
Well, we have to remember that we're on uncharted territory. It's not just the politics and religion, but race as well. And it opened up a can of worms for all of those decisions and all of those discussions at the same time. You know, so it's like we brought our big bang out at the same time, so where do we go from here? But the good thing is it opened up the dialogue. So that people, well, it did. It opened up the dialogue. Yes. We just have to remember to be respectful and to more, we were saying earlier, you know, and listen. Listen more so than talking. You already know what your opinion is, but sometimes you need to listen to the other point of view.
And never has the dialogue been so openly about race, about sexism, about morality, about rich versus poor. So these things are more out in the open. I think she's right.
And it's also true, they've been there all along. This just shined the light on it.
It does, but it also shined maybe a more intense light on the fact that we are intractable on some of these things. I talked to a Hillary supporter this past week who has no interest in sort of us all coming together. She said, no, I'm going to stay mad for the next 4 years. That may not be...
People are hurt, Devin.
Yeah.
They're hurt to the core. They're hurt because some of the beliefs, a lot of the beliefs, core beliefs that we had about our country were shattered. You know, you don't tease people with disabilities. You don't make racial comments. You don't, you know, separate people.
Well, the campaign has never been so vulgar and has never been so crass before.
Yes. Which takes me to, what do we tell our kids about what they're watching? They're seeing the videos. We had of course, sadly, famously in Royal Oak, kids in a middle school yelling, "Build that wall." We've watched people breaking into physical violence. How do we explain this to our kids?
I think the most important teachers are at home. So it's an opportunity for us to pass our values down to our children, and we can use all of these examples in the media to teach them, to say, this is what mom and dad think would be a better way to do it.
And we have to let kids know that people say things in anger that they don't necessarily mean. And that when emotions are high, people take an extreme position, they blurt things out, and if any little kid has said to a brother or sister or parent, I hate you, they mean that for the moment, but that's not who they are.
But I do think we need to have a sensitivity of how vulnerable everyone is now, how many people have been hurt, and to really heighten our sensitivity to one another.
And self-responsibility. Remind our kids that they're responsible for themselves.
Yeah, but and this rawness, though, you expect that subsides with a little bit of time here, or does every story from here on out? I think over the last week, as we've watched some people who were Hillary supporters become more upset as they've watched some of the transition decisions being made, I'm not sure I guess how do we come to terms with not getting our way is what this ends up being about, the question.
I think it's a matter of time. With time, things can change, but it depends on the way it goes. If things continue to go the way they are, in a negative, in what people perceive to be in a negative way, then we'll get one response. If they see that, that you're going to be the president for the people, and you're going to do some positive things, and then, people can deal with that.
But that's growing up, learning to live with things that not having our way, and learning how to deal with frustration. But hopefully there'll be a return of civility. Right. And I think that's very important. I think the media and the journalists can show us an example, personally in the home, the example of we don't talk that way here, we don't speak that way, we don't use that kind of language, we don't call other people names. And the most disturbing thing to me about the campaign is we had two very talented, exceptional people just pointing fingers at each other and saying bad things about each other instead of talking about the issue. The
behavior that was modeled is a little tough. Don, I'll let you have the last word, though, as far as thinking about this from how to find it in yourself. This is, I think, your specialty. Finding yourself to sort of find reason to get up in the morning and see sunshine.
Well, it looks cloudy and the plane takes off, cuts through the clouds, and it's always sunny up there. So it's always sunny everywhere, not just in Philadelphia.
Okay, thank you all very much, and happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for the conversation. We'll wrap things up right after this on Flashpoint on Local 4. Don't go away.
Don't miss
Welcome back. Before we go, let's point our way toward Thursday. I think my roundtable of psychiatrists and counselors is on the money. There are a lot of things that can divide us coming out of that bitter election experience, but maybe right now it's a good time to focus on the things that unite us, and those include the great traditions. A good time to celebrate all the things that happen in Detroit every Thanksgiving. This year it will be the 90th edition of America's Thanksgiving Parade. A good chance to celebrate the many good things that are happening downtown. They are right now clearing Woodward Avenue. All of the construction is done on the M1 line, so it should be a sparkling new Woodward in a way that we see on Thursday. Our coverage gets underway bright and early, 9 a.m. I hope you'll join us. It's the best day of any year in Detroit. It's Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday. Have a great week. Meet the Press coming up next right after Mitch Albom's Heart of Detroit, and we'll see you next week right back here for Flashpoint.